What is going on, YouTube people? Today, the question that I have gotten probably more in comments, DMs, mentions in social posts than any other over the last, let's just call it 2 weeks. What do we do with our Beckett slabs? Quite frankly, I don't know that there's a perfect answer. That's what we're going to kind of talk about today. This is, I just thought for a little, what vested interest do I have in this conversation? I actually own quite a few Beckett cards. There's two out on the desk right now. There's an Evan Mobley Contenders Auto, a Donovan Mitchell Blue Rookie, and a BGS 9.5. That's a Min Gem. That's a BGS 9. And then I have these, and I have a lot of nicer cards in Beckett Slabs. You know, I always went with I'll take a little discount when buying on a BGS 9.5 compared to a PSA 10, or, sometimes you can get a BGS 9.5 for not that much more than a PSA 9. And that still holds true today. And then some cards, it wasn't even so much about the grade itself. Here's a perfect example. This Austin Auto from what year is this? 2001. I didn't necessarily care that this was a 7.5. I cared more that it was slab, that it had the auto grade 10 on it, that the card looked pretty clean. Yeah, it has a bunch of like little edge chipping and stuff, but I knew that when I bought it. This part didn't really matter too much. I just wanted to make sure the card was real, and I liked the fact that the grade, or that the auto, looked pretty clean on it. So I snagged this one. These don't come up for sale super often, especially at auction, and I grabbed it. A lot of the LeBron refractors that I have in my collection are in Beckett Slabs. I love this card. I think this is one of the best images out there when it comes to LeBron refractors, and it's one of my favorite ones out of all of them. This is a BGS 8.5. Would this cross to a PSA 9? I don't think so. I think it's a PSA 8 all day. It has two white corners, bottom right there, top right there. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but trust me, they have a little whitening on the back. Plus, it is ever so slightly off-centered as well. Not much. It's pretty close. It's not too bad. I have this one. Awesome image. Now, this, I think, has a legit shot to 9. It's all 9s across the board on the subgrades. They actually gave it 9.5 centering, which I don't think this card is 9.5 centering. That card looks like 9 centering all day long. So I think this would have a decent shot at maybe getting a 9. It's got a little white on a corner. The centering's slightly off, but this could also easily, if I sent this in, I would not be shocked if this came back an 8 at PSA. I have the Jordan Scoring Kings in a BGS 8.5. These are notoriously hard to grade. If I sent this in, I'd probably be thrilled if it got a PSA 8, just knowing how PSA grades these, because they are pretty rough. The subgrades on this, you could see there as soon as the autofocus stops being wonky on me. 9.5, 8.5, 8.5, 9. So this, if I'm lucky, maybe it's a PSA 8. Would I be shocked if this came back like a PSA 7 on a Scoring Kings? No. Just given how condition sensitive these things are. This one, I definitely don't really care about the grade per se. I picked this up at the National a few years ago. I just really wanted a Jim Brown auto. I love SP Sign of the Times. The 8.5 grade told me that the card wasn't completely trashed. The 10 auto is what I cared about here. I'd be perfectly fine if this came back a PSA 8. No issues there at all. I looked the card over. I actually didn't see anything too crazy on it, but it's hard to tell surface on these. We got an EX Century Jordan. Here's another one. Ridiculously tough to grade condition-wise. 1993 SP Upper Deck. Manny Ramirez. Not technically his rookie card. But these things in a PSA 10 are impossible. Like, literally impossible. This has a little white corner on the top right. That's the reason why it has a 9 on the corners. This is one that I don't think I would ever crack out. I would just leave it as is because I know this has zero shot at coming across in maybe even a PSA 9. A die cut? Yeah, right. I'm not going to mess around with a BGS 9 die cut. This has 8.5 edges. Shocking. There's a billion edges on it. Like you can see right there. Probably the reason why it got the 8.5 on the edges on some of these. Gorgeous card. Happy to have it in a Beckett 9. Another die cut. Manny Ramirez. And then these two. Remember these two? These are still floating around. The Tatum Green and the Luka Blue. These are both min gems with 9 on the corners. I actually think the Luka looks a little cleaner than the Tatum. There's a little white down in that bottom right-hand corner. This one has a little white on that bottom left corner. If you're looking at the, depending on what side of the card you're looking on, has a little white on the corners. So that's probably why that got a 9.5 or a 9 on the corners. I think this one could potentially have a shot at a 10. I think this one's most likely, if I send it in the PSA, going to be a 9. So, like, what do we do here? Is the Beckett brand that tarnished that we have to immediately, I've seen people saying, I'm selling all my Beckett slabs. I'm out of the game. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And that's perfectly fine. You do you. I'm going to take a more conservative approach to this. I'm not going to rush to any judgments, any decisions, anything like that. Once you keep this in mind, if you crack the card, that's it. You're not putting the milk back in the milk jug. It's done. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. You're not putting them back together again. If you crack the slab, you have no options at that point to go backwards. Your only path is forward with a different grading company or keeping the card raw. So before anyone makes any hasty decisions on anything, do keep that in mind. Second, we don't actually know what's going to happen with that. We really don't. Someone could still come in and buy them. I get it, myself included, guilty of the doom clickbait thumbnails, because there is a lot of pessimism around the company, 100% deserved. But none of us know what the future holds. Does someone else buy them? Do they make the decision that all 9.5s are now 10s or something like that? A new Beckett 10. I don't know. Nobody knows. If that happened, maybe that changes the market sentiment around Beckett. I think those sorts of things are more likely long shots. I think if you said Beckett went away tomorrow, if it just poof, disappeared in the wind and it just no longer existed, which I also believe is a semi-long shot to happen, that they just don't exist anymore. That older cards graded in their slabs, I think they're not going to go to 0. But what I think happens is BGS 9.5s, especially with weaker subgrades, continue to trend closer and closer to PSA 9s. The Green Tatum, for example, I forget the exact numbers off the top of my head now, but basically let's call it a PSA 9 is doing like 800 and a BGS 9.5 is doing around 1,000. That's not that big of a difference. It's basically, that's nothing between those two cards. You're getting a little extra value out of the BGS 9.5. So maybe at that point in time, if the values of 9.5s completely tank and fall in line with a PSA 9, then yeah, it's probably worth the risk to crack it and see if you could get the PSA 10 on the card or not. But I'm not rushing to do that. Now, with the Tatum, I'm just speaking with my own cards here personally. The Tatum blue, the Tatum green, the Luka blue, and some of the LeBrons, I almost wonder if it's worth trying to cross them in the case, but put the min grade a grade lower. So send, for example, these two in the PSA with a min grade of 9 on it. Because I think it's more likely that they crack them out and take a look at the card if you put a 9 on it, and then maybe it gets the PSA 10. And then if they don't even think it'll get a 9, then they just leave it in the case. That's an option. I think crossing over with a min grade of 10 is a fool's errand. You are most likely going to fail on that. But you have to be willing, if you're going to send it in the way I just discussed, that if it comes back a 9, you're okay with that. At this point in time, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Now, could that change? Absolutely. Some of this stuff, I'm not super concerned about the grade. Like the Jim Brown, I would be perfectly fine to crack that out and send it in. If it got a PSA 8, I'd be fine with that. Hell, I'd almost be fine with this card just raw in a mag rather than the no subgrade silver label, which I absolutely hate. The Austin, this is one I would actually take in like a PSA 7 with a 10 auto holder. I'd be probably pretty okay with that. You know, if this came back a PSA 7 with a 10 auto, or, you know, maybe an authentic with a 10 auto. Put a min grade 6 on it or something. I don't know, you know, as long as this card is not significantly just destroyed, I don't know how much the grade between a PSA 7 versus a PSA 8 versus a Beckett 7.5 is gonna swing the value that much. You know, there's only 500 of these. Most of them are not in great condition, and the auto grade almost matters as much as the card grade does on a card like this, in my opinion anyway. You can tell me if I'm an idiot down below in the comments. You know, on the super condition sensitive ones like the Ramirez SP and the cut above, and where's my Scoring Kings, I just don't think these can ever leave this slabs. Unless you anything condition sensitive like this, and I'm sure you all have some cards like this, I just think your risk is not worth the reward unless the prices just completely tank on it. But I think that's my overarching sentiment here is don't do anything stupid. I get it. There's a lot of negative buzz around them. But like I said before, once you put the pliers on it and it busts open, that's it, you know, in regards to whatever that current grade is. So if you had a really nice condition sensitive card, or just a really nice card in general, like a Tatum Green and a BGS 9.5, and you crack that bad boy, it's a raw card now. You know, send it in. Maybe you get the 9. Maybe you get the 10. Maybe you get the 8. Maybe you get the Rogue 6. Who knows? You know, I just know myself personally, before I recorded this video, I kind of looked over all these cards just to kind of get an idea if I thought they had a shot to PSA 10 or not. And I'm skeptical on a good chunk of these BGS 9.5s crossing over to a PSA 10. Everyone that I looked at, I noticed an immediate flaw on the card. And to be fair to Beckett, it was usually what they pointed out in the subgrade. You know, I knew this was a min gem when I bought it. I knew that the one corner wasn't like 100% fantastic. It wasn't terrible, but I knew that there was a little white in the bottom corner of this card when I bought it. I looked at it before I bought it, or traded. I traded for this actually. Same thing with the Luca. I looked this over. I've looked this over in the past to think about potentially crossing it. I think this one has an outside chance, but it's still risky. You know, this is one of the things. Everyone that says they love Beckett Slabs, this is one thing I don't love about Beckett Slabs. This Jordan EX, this was a ComC auction pickup. I just like buying random 90s Jordan inserts every once in a while if they come up. They're super liquid. You could always move them. They're great trade bait. This has a surface mark right there. Now, the grade hit on this is a 9 surface. The problem is, and I think, I'm almost positive, that's on the inner sleeve. Beckett, as we all know, has a little inner sleeve on it. They get scuffed often. I see Beckett cards all this time with scuffed inner sleeves, and it looks a lot like that. Now, maybe it is on the actual card. I don't 100% know. But I have no way of knowing unless I crack the card out and cut it out of the inner sleeve. So does this have it? You know, this has strong subgrades. 10 corners, 10 edges, 9 centering, or 9.5 centering, and a 9 surface, which on an acetate card is not unheard of. The card as is, I think, looks pretty decent outside of whatever that is. Like I said, I think it's on the bag, but there's no real way to tell that. So then I'd have to take the risk of cracking it. And then if that is actually on the card, let's be honest, this card is drastically overgraded. In my opinion, there's no way this is a 9.5 or even a 9 if that's legitimately on the surface. In my opinion, what the hell do I know? So it's a tricky situation all the way around. Like I said, my main point here is don't make any rash decisions on this stuff. Could Beckett go to 0? Yes. And guess what? If this stuff all goes to 0, I can always send it to PSA later, or SGC or CGC, whoever it is that everyone wants to send to. Those companies, PSA is not going anywhere. I will be able to submit these cards to PSA anytime that I want. If I crack it out, though, game over. Now they have to go somewhere. So just don't make any rash decisions out there. Let's see how this all plays out on what to do with our Beckett stuff. Because, and here's the other thing, it'd be, you could also go down, hey, well, just sell them and get rid of them. Well, I don't want to. I like owning the cards. I like these LeBron refractors. I don't want to let these go. I want to own these cards, and I have them in relatively decent condition. So it's not as simple as just, well, get rid of the cards. I'm not going to get rid of my Manny Ramirez stuff. I'm not getting rid of this Austin auto. The Jordan, I could take it or leave it. I would trade that card away in the right deal or sell it potentially. The Jim Brown, I would be fine with it raw. These two cards just have sentimental value to me. I love the Jordan Scoring Kings. I've wanted one forever. And like I said, I think trying to cross that over is a fool's errand. Maybe you put a min grade 8 on it. I don't know what the price difference is between a PSA 8 and a BGS 8.5. But these are the sort of things you need to look at. Look at your Beckett slabs and figure out what you need to do. Maybe your stuff looks clean. I forgot one because it's not in this pile. It's on the desk. That Donovan Mitchell BGS 9.5, I actually think has a pretty decent shot at being a PSA 10. I looked it over. I think it looks pretty clean. This Evan Mobley in a BGS 9, I actually also think looks pretty clean. I think it could easily PSA 9 and maybe even has an outside shot at a PSA 10. So it's not all doom and gloom. Just these particular cards that I have, I think a lot of them would not cross over well. Curious for your thoughts and comments down below. What are you doing with your Beckett slabs? Are you selling? Are you cracking? Are you crossing? Are you going the other way and actively buying? That's still a play too. Beckett slabs still have respect, just not as much as they used to. And it could get worse. Curious for your thoughts and comments. That's all I got. Catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.